Carson walked through the steel corridors of Starlight Station with a clipboard in his hand. His uniform was freshly pressed, his boots polished to a shine, but his mind felt foggy from the long shift he had just finished. He was 28 years old and had been working as a security guard at the detention block for 3 years. The job was simple: watch prisoners, report any disturbances, and keep the peace. Nothing more. Today was different. Commander Hayes had pulled him aside during morning briefing and given him a new assignment. She had explained that a dangerous alien prisoner had just arrived from a far corner of space. The creature was called, and she belonged to a species known as the. According to the briefing documents, they were highly intelligent, possibly telepathic, and had a reputation for viewing other species as inferior. They had been researching human civilization for months, and had finally made contact with Starlight Station in a way that was not peaceful. Had read the files on his way down to Detention Block 7. Ship had been spotted near Earth's outer colonies without authorization. When the station's defense system moved to intercept, she had destroyed 2 patrol ships before being captured herself. The loss of human life had made the situation urgent. Command wanted this prisoner studied, questioned, and potentially used as a bargaining chip if more ships appeared. The detention block was cold and white. Everything here was white or gray or silver. The walls seemed to absorb sound, making his footsteps echo in a strange way that made him feel alone. He passed several empty cells, each one sealed behind a transparent energy barrier that hummed with electrical power. The barriers were strong enough to hold even a creature with superhuman strength. That was what Command had told him anyway. At the far end of the block found his station. A chair sat facing one of the cells. Through the transparent barrier, he could see the prisoner. Stopped breathing for a moment. He had expected something monstrous. He had imagined teeth and claws and an expression full of hatred, but was not what he expected. She was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Her form was roughly humanoid, but that was where the similarity ended. Her skin seemed to be made of something like crystal that caught the light and bent it into strange colors. When she moved, her body seemed to refract light in a way that made her shape shimmer and shift. Along her arms and across her torso, there were patterns that glowed with a soft blue light. Her hair was long and dark, but it seemed to float slightly as if she were underwater. Her eyes were large and reflective, like polished mirrors. She was standing in the center of her cell, absolutely still. She was watching. Moved to his chair and sat down. He was trained to be professional. He was trained not to show emotion. He was trained to see prisoners as security risks, not as living beings. He tried to focus on the clipboard in his lap and the list of protocols he was supposed to follow, but he felt her eyes on him the entire time. Then she moved. It was not a sudden movement, but it was deliberate. She walked to the barrier between them. She placed one long hand against it. The hand had 5 fingers, but they were longer than human fingers, with nails that seemed to be made of the same crystal as her skin. Looked up at her face. "Oh," she said. Her voice was strange, but not unpleasant. It was like listening to music that you had heard a long time ago but could not quite remember. The name came out clearly with proper pronunciation. She was not guessing or testing him. She said his name as if she had known him her entire life. "How do you know my name?" asked. His voice sounded harder than he felt. "I know many things about you," said. She did not smile, but something in her expression softened. "I know that you were born in North Carolina. I know that your father died when you were very young. I know that you joined the military because you wanted to feel like you belonged to something larger than yourself." Stood up from his chair. "That information is classified. You should not have access to it." "I do not have access to anything in your station's computers," said. "I know these things because I remember them. I remember you." "That is impossible," said. "I have never seen you before today." Turned away from the barrier and walked to the far corner of her cell. She stood there with her back to him, her body still glowing softly in the darkness. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "Not in this life," she said. "Not in this moment, but I knew you once. I know you still. It is a strange thing to feel you here, so close but separated by this barrier. It is strange and painful and wonderful all at the same time." Did not know what to say. He wanted to call for backup. He wanted to report that the prisoner was trying to manipulate him through psychological games, but something in her voice was genuine. Something in the way she held herself suggested that she was not lying. She seemed to be suffering from some kind of genuine emotion, not performing an act. "What do you want from me?" asked. Did not turn around. "Nothing," she said. I want nothing from you except to be near you, to see that you are real, to know that in this timeline, in this moment, you still exist. Sat back down in his chair. His hands were shaking. He kept them folded in his lap so no one 3 days had passed since first met. In that time, he had completed 6 shifts in detention block 7. 6 shifts of 8 hours each. 48 hours of sitting in that chair, watching her move around her white cell, trying not to think about what she had said. His commanding officer, Hayes, had noticed something was wrong. She had asked him if he was feeling sick. He had said no. She had asked him if the prisoner was causing problems. He had said no. He had lied both times. Something was definitely wrong with him and was the entire reason. During his 7th shift, arrived early. He wanted to collect his thoughts before the prisoner saw him. He wanted to prepare some kind of defense against whatever she was going to say next. But when he entered the detention block, was already standing at the barrier, waiting for him. She seemed to know that he was coming. "You could not sleep last night," said. It was not a question. Did not respond. He moved to his chair and sat down. "You had a nightmare," continued. "You were 7 years old. You were hiding in a closet. Outside the closet, there was a storm. Your mother was calling your name, but you could not answer because you were afraid the storm would find you if you made any sound." His hands went cold. The clipboard nearly fell from his lap. "How do you know that?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "I told you," said. "I remember you." "Childhood fears are not something you remember about someone you just met," said. "These are things that nobody knows. I have never told anyone about that closet. I have never mentioned that storm to a single person in my entire life." Moved closer to the barrier. Her bioluminescent patterns brightened, casting blue shadows across her crystalline face. "There are many realities," she said. "There are many versions of this universe. In some of those realities, I have known you for years. In some realities, we have been friends. In some realities, we have shared our fears and our hopes and our deepest secrets. Those memories exist in my mind as clearly as the memories of my own childhood. I carry them with me across all the timelines I have experienced." Wanted to leave. He wanted to stand up and walk away and request a transfer to a different job. But he could not move. "My species has abilities that yours does not," explained. "We can perceive the probability matrices of reality. We can see the threads that connect different timelines. We can sense people who exist across multiple versions of existence. When I was traveling through your solar system, I felt your presence. I felt you existing in a way that echoed through multiple realities. So I came down to find you. I came down to see if you were real in this timeline as well." "This does not make sense," said. "This is not how reality works. There is no such thing as multiple timelines. There is just one world, one life, one moment after another." "That is what your species believes because your perception is limited," said. "But I assure you, the other realities are just as real as this one. In some of them, you and I have known each other very well." Over the next week, continued to share details about life that she should not have known. She mentioned the time he had failed his first pilot license exam and how ashamed he had felt. She described his mother's hands, the way she used to move when she was making breakfast on Sunday mornings. She quoted words his father had said to him when was only 3 years old, words that he had forgotten until reminded him. Each detail was correct. Each memory that she brought to the surface was authentic. Could not explain it, but he also could not deny it. Something about this alien woman knew him in a way that felt deeper than just reading classified files or hacking into military computers. One day, during the 2nd week of his assignment, began to hum. It was a melody that recognized. It was a simple song, a lullaby, the kind of thing that mothers sang to their children before bedtime. His mother had sung this song to him 1,000 times, had not heard it in years. He had almost forgotten it existed. But the moment began humming, the memory came rushing back. He could see his mother's face. He could feel her hand on his forehead. He could hear her voice singing the same melody that was now producing with her alien throat. Stood up from his chair. He walked to the barrier between them. "What are you doing to me?" he asked. "Nothing," said. She stopped humming. "I am not doing anything to you. I am simply being myself in your presence. I am simply allowing you to remember who you are. I am simply showing you that in other places and other times you are not alone." Placed his hand on the barrier. He could feel the energy of it humming beneath his palm. It was warm. "I brought you something," said. He pulled a small object from his pocket. It was a drawing, a sketch that he had made from memory. It showed his mother's face the way he remembered her. He held it up to the barrier so that could see it. 3 weeks into his assignment, made a decision that would change everything. He broke into the classified archives of Starlight Station. It was late at night. The corridors were quiet. Most of the staff was sleeping or on minimum duty, used his security clearance to access the lower levels of the station's computer system. He had always had high-level access because of his position in the detention block. But tonight, he was using that access for something he was not supposed to do. He searched for his file. It was there encrypted and marked with security warnings. Bypassed the warnings. His hands were shaking as he read through the data. Ship had been tracked for over 500 kilometers before it entered Earth's orbital space. The tracking systems had recorded her communications. Most of them were in her own alien language, but some were in English, and those messages were disturbing. Had been sending messages to the deep space repeatedly. She had been calling out to someone, and from what could piece together from the fragmented data, she had been calling for a long time. One message was in English. It was recent. It had been sent just before her capture. "I have found him," the message read. "I have found in this timeline. I am landing to make contact. If I do not return, send this information to the High Council. Tell them that Carson exists. Tell them that humanity is not what they believe." His heart was racing, had come to Earth deliberately. She had not been exploring or gathering intelligence on humanity in general. She had been looking for him. She had been searching specifically for Carson. He left the computer terminal and went directly to the detention block. It was against protocol. It was against every rule of military conduct, but did not care about rules anymore. He needed answers. Was awake when he entered her cell block. She seemed to be waiting for him. "You read my file," she said. "You came here to find me," said. "You crashed your ship, you risked your life. Why?" Walked to the barrier. In the dim emergency lighting of the detention block, her crystalline skin seemed to glow more brightly. "Come closer," she said. "Let me tell you what I know." Moved to the barrier. He placed both hands against it. "My species discovered something many centuries ago," began. "We discovered that time itself is not linear. We discovered that reality branches and splits like a great tree. Each choice, each moment creates a new branch, a new timeline, a new version of existence. For generations, we could only observe these other realities. We could see them but not touch them. But eventually, we learned how to sense people who exist across multiple branches of the tree. People whose consciousness resonates in a particular way that echoes across all realities. That is science fiction," said. "That is not real." "It is real to my people," replied. "When I was studying human civilization, preparing our society's first contact protocols, I became aware of something unusual. There was a male human named Carson. His consciousness had a particular resonance. He existed not in one timeline, but in many. In some timelines, he was a soldier. In others, he was a scientist or a farmer or a teacher. But in every timeline where we made contact, in every version of reality where my people met your people, there was always a Carson. And in one particular timeline, a timeline that I experienced very clearly through my people's technology, I knew Carson very well." Felt something break open inside his chest. "What do you mean you knew me?" "In that timeline, your people and my people were at war," said. "Your civilization was losing. Your military forces were overwhelming, but your weapons were not powerful enough to match our technology. We were going to conquer you. We were going to add humanity to our empire of subjugated species. But then I met you." She paused. Her patterns glowed brighter, casting blue light across her face. "You saved my life," she continued. "A weapon had struck me during a ground engagement. I was dying. Your military code said you should have left me there. Your training said you should have finished me off to ensure you had one less enemy. But you did not. You stopped and you helped me. You carried me to a shelter and you gave me medicine that was not designed for my physiology. You risked your entire career to save the life of an enemy." Was not breathing. "After that, I sent a message to my people," said. "I told them the truth about humanity. I told them that your species possessed something that mine did not. I told them that humans had the capacity for compassion even toward those who would kill them. I told them that humans would sacrifice their own survival for the sake of another being. My people did not listen. They called me insane. They said that your species was simply being tactical, that compassion was a weakness we should exploit. They said that my judgment had been compromised by my time among you." "But in that timeline," said, "what happened?" "In that timeline, the war continued until we had killed most of your species. In that timeline, humanity was nearly extinct. I spent the rest of my life ashamed of my people's choices, and I spent it loving someone who I could never be with because my civilization had destroyed his world. Felt tears moving down his face. He did not try to stop them. I vowed to myself, said, that if I ever encountered a timeline where things could be different, I would find you. I would come to you before my people made the choice to make contact through conquest. I would prove to my civilization that humanity deserved respect. I would show them that you were worth preserving. So you came here, said. You came deliberately to find me. I came, said, because in every timeline where I have searched for you, I have loved you. And in this timeline, I discovered that my feelings had transcended probability and reality itself. I came because some things are worth all the risk in the universe. The detention block was silent except for the hum of the energy barriers and the sound of breathing. Everything thought he knew about his life, about his assignment, about his purpose, was being completely rewritten. What happens now? He asked. Now, said, my people will arrive at your planet. They are coming to decide whether humanity is worth conquering, and I have to convince them that I am right about you. I have to make them understand that in every timeline, in every reality, humans are capable of greatness that my species has forgotten how to achieve. The next morning was summoned to Commander Hayes' office. He knew what was coming. He had spent the entire night thinking about it. His visits to had become longer. His shift reports had become vague and incomplete. His behavior had changed in ways that the other guards had certainly noticed. Command had grown suspicious. Hayes was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and a face that showed every year of military service. She was standing at her window when entered her office, looking out at the vast emptiness of space. Without turning around, she spoke to him. You broke into the classified archives, she said. Did not deny it. Yes, I did. Turned to face him. Her expression was not angry. It was disappointed, which somehow felt worse. We have been monitoring your access, she said. We knew the moment you breached the security protocols. We allowed you to continue because we wanted to see what you would do. I needed answers, said. About what? Asked. About a prisoner. About someone who crashed her ship near Earth and destroyed 2 of our patrol vessels. That prisoner, 2 human beings died because of her actions. She did not mean to kill them, said. She was trying to reach Earth. She was trying to find someone. Exactly, said. She moved behind her desk and sat down. She was looking for something or someone on Earth. We do not know what. But what we do know is that you have been spending excessive time with her. What we do know is that she has apparently told you things that have affected your judgment. What we know is that you may have been compromised. I have not been compromised, said. Have you not? Pulled up a file on her computer screen. The civilization is known for telepathic abilities. They are known for being able to implant suggestions into the minds of other species. We have intelligence suggesting that has been doing exactly that. She has been manipulating your thoughts. She has been making you believe things that are not true. His hands clenched into fists. She is not manipulating me. Everything she has told me is the truth. And what exactly has she told you? Asked. Realized that he had painted himself into a corner. If he told the truth, it would sound insane. It would sound like the ramblings of someone whose mind had been compromised. I cannot tell you, he said. Nodded as if his answer confirmed her suspicions. Effective immediately, you are suspended from your position in the detention block. You will be confined to your quarters pending further investigation. Security will escort you there now. Commander, please listen to me, said. I know how this sounds, but I have to warn you. The fleet is approaching our station, is not the enemy. She is trying to prevent a conflict between our species. If she wanted to prevent conflict, she would not have destroyed our ships, said coldly. If she wanted peace, she would not have crashed without permission. And if she was truly your friend, she would not have manipulated a military officer into betraying his duty. 2 security personnel appeared in the doorway of his office. They were large men with stern expressions, knew them both. They had eaten in the same mess hall. They had trained together. But their eyes were blank now, professional, showing no recognition of friendship. Take him to his quarters, ordered. Did not resist. He allowed them to lead him from the office. But as they walked through the corridors of Starlight Station, his mind was racing. He had to get back to the detention block. He had to see before command made a decision about what to do with her. The security personnel delivered him to his quarters and positioned themselves outside the door. The lock was controlled from the outside now. was a prisoner in his own room. He sat on his bed and thought about everything that had happened. He thought about the memories had shown him. He thought about the story of the timeline where they had loved each other. He thought about the fact that her entire civilization was approaching Earth because she had called for them. She had done all of that for him, not for power, not for conquest, for him. After 2 hours of confinement made his decision. He did not know if he could trust her completely. He did not know if her story about multiple realities was true. But he knew that he could not sit in this room and do nothing while Command decided its fate. They would likely execute her. They would see her as a security threat and eliminate the problem. Moved to the air vent in his quarters. It was small, but he was small enough to fit through. He had learned escape techniques during his military training, skills that he had hoped never to use. He pulled himself through the vent and began moving through the station's internal systems. It was cramped and dark, and his heart was pounding so hard he thought it would break through his ribs. He made his way to the detention block. The guards there were minimal because Command had not expected any problems, was able to slip past them in the darkness of the lower levels. When he reached Cell, she was waiting for him. She did not ask how he had escaped. She did not ask why he had come. She simply moved to the barrier and watched him. "I believe you," said. "I believe everything you told me, and I am going to help you." "You will sacrifice your life," said. "You understand that?" "Yes," said. "I understand." He moved to the control panel and began working on the barrier systems. He did not know the overrides, but he had access to the base programming. It took him 15 minutes of careful work, but finally the energy barrier flickered and failed. Stepped through the barrier into the rest of the station, for the first time since her capture. "The communication array is on the upper level," said. "We need to get you there before Command realizes what has happened." Said, and hearing his name and her voice still sent shivers through his body. "You trust me. You trust me enough to throw away everything." "I do," he said. "Now let us go." They ran through the corridors of Starlight Station together. An alien and a human, a prisoner and a guard. The communication array was a massive structure that extended from the upper levels of Starlight Station into the vacuum of space. It was used for long-range transmissions and for contacting vessels that were too far away for normal radio communication. Had never been here before, but seemed to know exactly where it was. She moved through the corridors with certainty, her crystalline form glowing softly in the station's lighting. They reached the array's control room just as security forces were closing in from the lower levels. Could hear footsteps echoing through the corridors behind them. He could hear voices calling out orders. They had perhaps 5 minutes before they were trapped. Moved to the communication console. Her fingers, which seemed too long and too alien, flew across the keyboard with surprising skill. Data appeared on the screens around them. Transmission parameters, signal strength, coordinates that reached out into the darkness of space. "The fleet is still 40,000 kilometers away," said. "I can reach them, but I need to send more than just a distress signal. I need to send them something that will make them stop, something that will make them understand." Wood asked. "The truth," said. She began typing. The screens filled with information. Data streamed across the displays, along with images and video feeds. Realized that she was sending not just information about Earth, but information about humans. She was sending everything she had learned about human civilization, human history, human achievement. She was showing her people who the humans really were. And then she did something unexpected. She sent a message in her own language, her own voice, transmitted across the void of space directly to her people. Did not understand the words, but he understood the emotion. The message was urgent. It was passionate. It was beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Spoke for 10 minutes straight, her voice carrying across the vast emptiness between worlds. The security forces reached the control room and burst through the door. Stepped in front of, placing his body between her and the weapons that the guards were holding. He did not try to run. He did not try to fight. He simply stood there and refused to move. "Stop," one of the guards shouted. "Do not harm them," said. "What has been done is done. The message has been sent. The fleet will receive it. Firing on us now will only make things worse." Hayes appeared behind the security forces. She moved past them and looked at the communication console. The transmission was complete. The message had been sent at full power through the station's array. It had reached deep space and beyond. There was no way to call it back. There was no way to erase what it said. Take them into custody, ordered, both of them, and were led to a secure holding area. They were separated and placed in different rooms, was left alone with his thoughts for hours. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know if his message would be enough to change her people's minds. He did not know if his sacrifice would mean anything at all. But then, approximately 36 hours later, everything changed. The fleet arrived at the outer edges of Earth's solar system. But instead of approaching with weapons active and shields raised, they arrived with a simple message. They requested a diplomatic meeting. They said that they had received a transmission from one of their own. They said that they wished to understand more about the human species before making any decisions regarding first contact. Hayes came to personally to tell him. She did not apologize. That was not her way. But there was something different in her expression. Something that suggested she was beginning to understand that she had misunderstood the situation. Was correct, told him. Your faith in her was justified. Our intelligence analysts have reviewed her transmission. She did not send military secrets or strategic weaknesses. She sent information about human art, music, literature, history. She sent information about human compassion and sacrifice. She sent information that portrayed your species in a way that my commanders have never considered before. What happens now? Asked. Now, said, you have been selected to be part of the first official human diplomatic team. Your willingness to trust each other, your willingness to sacrifice for each other, will serve as the foundation for our two species' future relationship. Was released from custody. He was restored to active duty, though his assignment had changed completely. He was no longer a guard in a detention block. He was an ambassador and was freed from her cell. They stood together in the observation deck of Starlight Station, looking out at the vast emptiness of space. The fleet was visible now, their ships moving slowly into Earth's orbital space. It was a moment of profound significance. Two species that had never truly known each other were about to meet as equals, not as conquerors and conquered. I was afraid, said, that I had made the wrong choice. I was afraid that I had thrown away my life for nothing. You did not, said. She placed her hand on his shoulder, her crystalline skin cool against his uniform. In every timeline where I have loved you, you have always made the right choice. And in this timeline, you have done something even more remarkable. You have chosen to believe in something beyond your understanding. You have chosen faith over fear. You have shown your people what humans are truly capable of. I did it for you, said. I know, said. That is why it worked. That is why my people will listen. Because they will see that a human chose to sacrifice everything for an alien, and that is something my civilization has never understood. That is something they need to learn. The two species began their formal meetings. Hours of negotiation followed. Hours of discussing treaties and protocols and the way forward, but through it all and stood together. And slowly, the leadership began to see what had been trying to tell them all along. Humans were not weak because they were compassionate. They were strong because they were compassionate. Humans were not inferior because they valued individual relationships over civilization advantage. They were superior because they understood that some things mattered more than power. A historic accord was signed, an agreement of peace and mutual respect between humanity and the... In the years that followed, the two species formed a partnership that changed the course of galactic history. Was offered a permanent position as Earth's primary ambassador to the... was given the same position in reverse, and together they became the bridge between two worlds. One evening, after months of diplomatic missions and formal meetings, and stood on a balcony on the... They could see both Earth and the planet in the sky above them. Two worlds, no longer separated by fear and misunderstanding, but connected by the choices two individuals had made. I never asked you, said, why you searched for me across all those realities. Why me specifically? There must have been billions of humans. Why was I so important that you would risk everything? Was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice carrying the weight of infinite timelines and infinite choices. Because in every reality where I searched, you were always there. You were always the same. Brave, kind, willing to see beyond the surface of things, willing to love despite impossibility. There were other humans I encountered. There were other people who showed me kindness and compassion. But you, Carson, echoed through the realities in a way that no one else did. Some things transcend logic. Some things transcend reality itself. And love is one of those things. My love for you is older than any timeline. It existed before I found you, and it will exist long after everything else has faded away. Took her hand in his. Her skin was smooth and cool and absolutely real. In this moment, in this single point of existence, they were not separated by species or civilization or the vast machinery of space and time. They were simply two beings who had found each other across impossible odds and chosen to build something beautiful together. Above them, the stars shone with their ancient light, and below them, two civilizations worked together to build a future that neither could have imagined alone. All because one person had the courage to believe in something beyond understanding. All because one person was willing to sacrifice everything for love. O people from different worlds, separated by biology and civilization and the laws of nature itself, but united by something that transcended all of those barriers. Behind them, alarms were beginning to sound. The station was waking up to what they had done, but did not look back. He kept his eyes forward toward the communication array, toward whatever future they might create together. "And if you fail?" asked. "If I fail," said, "then humanity will fall under the rule of my people, and you and I will be separated by choices we cannot control, just as we were in that other timeline." Pressed his forehead against the barrier. He could feel the warmth of the energy against his skin. On the other side did the same. The barrier separated them, but in that moment understood that nothing could truly separate them anymore. The truth had been revealed, and now everything depended on what was willing to do with it. Looked at the drawing for a long time. Then she placed her hand directly across from separated by the barrier. Her crystal skin caught the light and created patterns of reflection. "That is what I wanted to see," said softly. "That is why I came all this distance. That is why I risked everything. In this timeline, you can still remember her. In this timeline, you are still here." Did not fully understand what was happening. He did not know if was telling the truth about alternate realities or if she was somehow manipulating him through means he could not comprehend. But he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer just a guard watching a dangerous prisoner. Something had changed between them. Something had become real in a way that transcended logic and training and military protocol. And the strangest part was that was beginning to accept it. Would see, he watched in her cell. She stood with her back to him, her body glowing with that soft blue light. Outside the detention block, the station continued its normal operations. Ships docked and undocked. Crew members moved through the corridors. Nobody else seemed to notice that everything had just changed. Did not know what was happening. He did not understand what meant or how she could know the things she knew. But one thing was clear. This assignment was not going to be simple. This prisoner was not going to be easy to guard. And somehow already knew that the professional distance he was supposed to maintain was going to be impossible to achieve.